the Andy Snowden Radio Show. It's the Andy Snowden Radio Show. It's the Andy Snowden Radio Show. It's the Andy Snowden Radio Show.
Shane Williams is a Welsh Rugby Union star, most famous perhaps for his long and successful tenure as a wing for the Ospreys and the Welsh national team. He is Wales's record try scorer with 87 appearances, and add to that tours for the British and Irish Lions makes him one of Wales's best loved sons. At the end of the month, he takes to the road with a very different kind of tour, an evening with Shane Williams, hosted by Welsh actors Ieuan Rhys and Phyl Harries, and I'm so pleased to say that they join me via Zoom now on this very important day for rugby, with Wales taking on England later on this afternoon in the Six Nations. So we better crack on, gents. I've got so much to ask you. Ieuan, let's talk about COVID first, because COVID's been a nightmare for everybody, especially people in the performing arts, I suppose. But how's it been? How's it been for you?
Been very quiet. Been very quiet the last sort of 2 years. But you've got to keep positive and you've got to keep going. So I've done a lot of things. With Phil and Shane, we've done a few things online, and I think you've just got to keep going. And that was my philosophy right from the beginning. At the beginning, I thought, like everybody else, it was only going to last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But after that, then I thought, I can't just sit here watching box sets after box set. So you start to do things to see what you can do online, and thank God for things like Zoom and what have you.
We would never have contemplated using Zoom before. It always sounded like the sort of thing kids did. But then it became a bit of a lifesaver. But Shane, we almost became dab hands, didn't we, at killing time? Was you quite good at killing time? I know you've got a young family, so that might be an odd question to you.
Yeah, I think the one thing that came out of it is the one positive thing, I suppose. One of the positive things was to spend more time with the family. Having been a rugby player in the past, I found myself on rugby tours and tournaments, and away from home, away matches, and so my family life was a bit disjointed, but to be home and be able to spend time with them was great. It was good fun. Same as you, really, at the start, it was exciting. We didn't know what was going to happen. Yeah. We all expected it to not last very long. But then as soon as it started dragging on, I realised as well, I can't just be enjoying myself at home with the family. I need to be a bit more proactive, really. So, started doing other things, started a few projects, started a couple of businesses online as well, and really made the most of the time that I was stuck in the house, really. And if I'm honest, really enjoyed it. I know there's going to be a lot of people, yeah. A lot of people are going to be going, I enjoyed it. We were stuck in the house. I was stuck in the house, but I got on with things, I'm not the kind of person to sit on my hands. I enjoy moving on and making the most of the time that I've got, really. So, yeah, I rather enjoyed it.
I'm exactly on board with you with that, because I found myself doing the most laborious jobs, and it was almost like the more laborious, the better. Like painting the fence or grouting or cleaning the grout. I did one day. I really enjoyed it, Anyway, Phil, far be it for me to start an interview with you talking about the weather, but it's been it's been catastrophic this last week. I knew all three of you down in South Wales, so it was really bad down there, wasn't it?
It was really bad. I mean, it sounds like you're blaming me for the weather there for a minute. I tell you what, it's been terrible. I mean, where we are, we were quite lucky, actually. We missed the brunt of it, but I did venture out on the Saturday, and it was pretty gusty and windy, and I could see the effects of it. Trees had blown down, and advertising boards were all over the place. So we were quite lucky, and like lots of places in the country, of course.
But I mean, it just looked. I mean, we were all promised it up here in North Wales. It was fine. It was, you couldn't dry your hair if you tried. It was weird. I mean, up here in North Wales, of course, Phil, you're quite popular with all the theatre goers because of your being the dame at Theatre Clwyd every year. But you brought this show, actually, didn't you? You brought an evening with Shane Williams up to Theatre Clwyd in August, did you not?
We did indeed. We had a very successful day up there in August. We had two shows, and they were both pretty sold out. and everybody loves Shane, of course, and the Mould audiences loved him more than anyone else, because we heard then a week later he was back up there again in a rugby club up there, so
Yeah.
they can't get enough of him up there.
Well, that sounds about right. Yeah, but Shane, talking of pantos, you've done a panto.
Yeah, we've done a panto. Yeah,
All three of you
we've done
did it?
two actually. Yeah, we were all involved certainly, and yeah, the first one was great fun. You know, I'd never done a panto before. I'd been in a play in school once, but I was literally doing a flick flack on the stage, so there was no singing, there was no dancing. And I certainly didn't have a character to play. So, yeah, it was fun. But I tell you what, it's one of the scariest things I've ever done. You know, prancing around there and singing and dancing in front of like hundreds of kids and families was absolutely petrifying. I'd rather face the hacker. I got to be honest with you. Yeah, it was amazing fun. And then I got to do a second one with the guys as well. Equally as scary, equally as fun, and I'm looking forward to the next one. It's brilliant, you know. It's something I'm able to do now and enjoy. That takes me out of my comfort zone as well. You know, running in front of 75,000 people and getting the crap kicked out of me was easy compared to this. Let me tell you. But we had some fun.
If you could play a musical instrument, maybe Phil, we could get him up to Theatre Clwyd for Christmas. That would be a treat.
Well, it's funny you should say that, Andy. No,
don't you dare, Phil.
That's going to be Shane's next challenge, is to play. When we do the panto again, we're going to get him to play something, and we're still hopeful. We did talk to Shane when. Sorry, I should explain. I was a producer on the panto, so I got to see a side that I don't usually see, which was great, and. We did talk to Shane about possibly doing a live panto, and he was well up for it. So hopefully he still is, and hopefully when we get back to normal very soon, we can arrange a panto with Shane traveling the country. I'm holding it to you now, Shane. All right, pal.
Yeah, don't put me on the spot, why don't you? Yeah.
Well, there you go. So yeah, an evening with Shane Williams. It's go on, tell us about it. What's the concept of it?
Well, the concept is really it's just a chat show on stage. And, you know, Phil and I came up with the idea of doing this, and we wanted somebody as our first guest. And because of the fact that we worked so closely with Shane during the panto, and not just worked with him, but really enjoyed working with him as well, we thought, let's ask Shane. And Shane agreed. And we tried it out, first of all, at the Coliseum Theatre in Aberdare as a trial. And it was a huge success. So then we decided to take it on tour, which we did. Just before the pandemic hit us. We were very lucky that we could complete the tour. We finished the tour, I think, at the end of January 2020, just before the pandemic. And it's just a chat show. It's, you know, Phil and I are there as the hosts, and the first half we ask Shane some questions, and then Shane comes out with some great answers and anecdotes and stories about his life growing up in Ammanford, and of course his days playing professional rugby. And if you haven't seen the show, honestly, the stories, you know, we've heard the stories loads of times, but Phil and I, we still laugh because we just love the stories. And then the second half is great because none of us knows what's going to happen because we open it up to the audience. But so far we've had some great questions, and Shane has never been stumped, and he's answered every question we've had.
Well, that could be quite nerve-wracking, Shane, but is that a bit that you enjoy? Because that, as you say, that bit's different every night. You don't get that twice anywhere.
Yeah, I love the interaction. You know, the start is great. You know, we to chat to Ieuan and Phil is fantastic. But like Ieuan says, my life story is my life story. You know,
Yeah.
if I'm doing it in Clwyd or in Port Talbot, it's the same. So. Yeah, you know, it gets really interesting when you've got Mrs. Jones, who's 96 years old, starts asking you questions, or you've got little Tommy on the front there who starts asking you questions, or someone who's had a few beers in the mid-tier that's had a few asked a few questions. So every night is different, and that's the great thing about that, interacting with people and answering questions that are 99% of the time sensible questions.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fun. That's the bit I like, and not only that, you know, interacting with them during the show and afterwards as well. We do, I just go out and meet and greet and shake a few hands and have a few photos. And, I love that side of it. I remember as a young man myself, seeing the likes of Ieuan Evans or Gerald Davis or Gareth Edwards and thinking, those are players that I look up to, and, I'd love a picture with them.
Yeah.
Or I'd love an autograph, but not a picture. Back in the day, we didn't have the phone space, so it was autographs mainly. But I love that side of it, and I think it's great that we make time to be able to do that as well, and we get a lot. That's where we get most of our positive feedback, is the fact that we can go. Not only myself, but Phil and Ye as well can go and have a chat to people and make their night enjoyable or day.
Yeah. And Phil, of course, Shane's. The story of his career is so fantastical. If it was made into a movie, some might even consider it being a little bit far-fetched. It's real sort of Roy of the Rovers stuff. I suppose the difficult bit for you guys was either A, know where to start it, and B, what to leave out, because you're going to have to leave some bits out.
That's true. And, I could hear Shane chuckling away there. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody's already approached him about the film already.
Johnny DeVito's ready to play.
Oh, my God. I would have thought Danny DeVito was playing me, eh? No, but yeah, it's a good question, because, you don't know until you do your first show. You don't know what's going to happen. And what amazed me right from the very start is that we asked Shane the first question, and I've never, ever seen anybody with such natural ability as Shane to tell a story. Because he's got that natural ability to craft his story so that it has a beginning and an end, and the middle, it can go one way or another. But he knows how to bring it back to its conclusion, deliver the punchline, without seemingly having rehearsed or anything. It's such a gift that you don't see that very often. So really, you start with a question: how did it all begin? And you just let Shane go, because he's got that ability to bring it round, and then you pick up then on when he finishes. Oh, okay, he's finished there, so we'll pick up with this question, and it goes on, and it's great.
Fantastic. And and I suppose rugby, to a Welsh person, it's almost a religion in a way. I mean, their life depends upon it. Do you remember the first time that you were introduced to it like most of us, as a young lad?
Well, when I was a child, my parents and myself would go to my parents' friend's house to watch the rugby, and that's all I can remember as a child, is my mother screaming at the television. And this was bizarre, because I was trying to watch the game, and I don't think my mother understood much about rugby, but she just, obviously we were all there supporting Wales.
Yeah.
But my mother and her friend, my Auntie Peg, they would just scream at the telly, where my father and my sort of uncle would just be sitting there watching the game. But the women were going mad. And that's what I remember as my first, memory of watching international rugby as a child. And, I've just carried on since, really. I don't scream like a woman now. Phil does.
Well, Phil, same question to you. Do you remember sitting around, it was for me anyway, and my family, we all sat around the TV and just went crazy for 80 minutes. It was weird, really.
Yeah, it was. It's true. And yes, I did watch the internationals, and my mother and father were interested in the internationals. Apart from that, I hated rugby. I was a big soccer fan.
Right.
And it's strange, but I do remember we did watch the internationals, and we were really interested in it. And my first live game was early 80s. It was a combination match at the old National Stadium. Now, Wales and Scotland or Ireland against England. I don't know who played with England. I don't know. I don't know who volunteered for that. But it must have been a celebratory game or something. So that was my first live one. And I remained a soccer fan right up until I met my wife. She was a rugby fan. And I thought, well, I got to get on with her. So I'll forget the football for a while. And I had a flat in Westgate Street. You know, it was great. So I used to watch Cardiff playing from the flat, and that's why now I'm a Blues supporter. But I've come the full circle. I don't watch much football anymore. And it's mainly rugby for me now. But
but I mean, Shane, you can't possibly, unless you've lived it yourself, be aware of what people's emotions are when they're watching a match, whether they're in the 75,000 people at the Millennium or watching it on TV in a pub or whatever. I mean, people just go crazy. But for you guys on the pitch, you've got a job to do, and that's all you can concentrate on, right?
Well, yeah. At the time as a player, it's exactly that. You've got a job to do. You're there to win the game. It's only 80 minutes. You got to do it, and you can't really focus on anything else apart from that. But for me personally, as I went full circle. I was lucky and fortunate enough to be able to be a young child who wanted to play for Wales, that supported the national team, and I was a Llanelli fan growing up as well, even though I wore the black jersey of Neath on the Ospreys. So I kind of understood what it meant to be a fan, and then kind of progress and become a player. And so every time I put that jersey on, I knew what it meant to the millions of people in Wales that were supporting and watching me, or at the stadium at the time. So that for me just made it even better, to be perfectly honest with you. So I was a massive rugby fan growing up. I was, like I say, used to go down Stradey Park quite a bit. I was there when the Llanelli beat Australia and Ieuan Evans scored that try under the post, and I remember being in the pub, a little bit older, watching Scott Gibbs cross that line in Wembley, and beer and God knows what flying up in the air, So I've gone through the whole emotion, from being a child supporter to a young lad, having a few beers in a pub, watching it, to actually doing it myself, being there on the pitch and doing the business. So I find myself very fortunate in that sense. And now I've gone full circle. I probably enjoy watching rugby more now because my son plays, and because I've still got mates in that Welsh team trying to do the business. So yeah, I'm very lucky. I've had it from all angles.
It's quite extraordinary, that, isn't it, to want to play for Wales when you think that's a lottery, that to be able to do that, but to be able to want to do it and end up doing it, that's quite incredible. I wonder, when you're speaking, I presume you speak to like lots of young kids now, and you're going to speak to your grandkids in the future about what you've achieved. I wonder what it is you'd actually tell them that you've achieved, because that's it's quite phenomenal, even as a professional.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't really think about it. I always think about how lucky I've been and the things I've accomplished individually and collectively as a team. And I'll always have that, and I'm very very happy and humble and proud that I've got that. But when I don't really talk about myself, to be honest with you, unless I'm doing this with the Ieuan and Phyl, to be honest. But yeah, look, I that's all I know, is that I've had the best 15 years of my life playing rugby. I've met the most fantastic people. I've travelled the world. I've been very lucky and fortunate to have won several things. But I've had my ups and downs. The ups were fantastic. The downs were tough and rough at the time. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't change anything. It's the whole part of the experience. It's the whole story I have, and that's all I ever. I get mums and dads come up to me all the time and ask me questions about their kids, and it's always about technical stuff or physical stuff. And I said, look, just let them play and enjoy themselves. That's all I ever did, whether I was 8 years of age or 25 years of age playing for Wales. I did it because I enjoyed it, and I did it with a smile on my face. And that's all. That's the only knowledge I can give to anyone really wanting to play for Wales is, look, go out there, have a crack. If you enjoy it, carry on doing it. If you don't enjoy it, go and play football or something. I don't know, play the piano. I'm not sure. And that's all I can tell them, really.
I realise that I've got the opportunity to ask this question that I never thought I'd ever get the opportunity to do. I trained as an actor, so I'm going to ask you a typical actor question. Does it hurt as much as it looks like it hurts? And if it does, do you ever get used to it?
Well, the rugby itself?
Yes. It looks horrendous.
Yeah. I'd be lying to say that it didn't hurt. But if anything, I found it easier being, a smaller player, because my whole mindset, you know, subconsciously or whatever it was to avoid the contact area, avoid the big tackles, especially avoid the big Tongans and Samoans that were out there chasing me. And I felt when I did get hit quite big, I was that small. I used to bounce off them. So you know, I look back and I look at players now sometimes and I think, Jesus, did I actually play against that one? Or you know, how if I'd have played now against that one, they'd have snapped me in half. But yeah, the answer is it did hurt. But you know, in a sadistic kind of way, I kind of enjoyed it sometimes. You know,
Yeah.
it made me feel alive, and probably the fear of God that was put up me made me become so fast and elusive over the years, and made me the player I was. So yeah, it did. You do learn to kind of land properly or land safely or tackle properly or safely, but there is the odd occasion where you know you get blindsided or someone's hit you and you didn't know they were coming and yeah, hit you into next Tuesday really. But look, I loved it. I got to be honest, I loved it.
Fantastic. Obviously, you've had so many things happen to you over the years, playing for Wales in the World Cups and the Six Nations, and then the Lions tour. Do you have a favourite moment before I let you go?
I have millions of favourite moments, but I think the one thing particular sticks out for me is probably my last game at the stadium, the Millennium Stadium or Principality Stadium, whatever you want to call it, because you know it was a huge occasion for me. I knew it was my last game. I knew it was the last time I put this jersey on, and I had my family there. I had my two children on the field with me, and to score a try in the final dying seconds of the match, and have the whole crowd stay there and do a standing ovation for me for about 10-15 minutes, even though it felt like an eternity, was a massive honour. And that one still, you know, I get goosebumps with a lot of things, but that for me was just the most unbelievable feeling I've ever had, and I'm forever grateful for it, because you know, for me that meant that, you know, I had that support and they were there right till the end for me. So yeah, that was great. That was one of my best ever feelings.
Well, I've had goosebumps just hearing that. I often wonder whether
me again
to experience that. I mean, do you ever think that happened to me? That
I do. I'm forever pinching myself and telling myself how lucky and fortunate I've been. You know, I do know that I've had to work bloody hard as well. I had to work hard to get there, because, you know, there was people willing me to fail. There was people saying that I wasn't quite ready or I wasn't good enough. But so I did work hard at it. But when I do look back, I find myself very fortunate. I find myself, you know, that the very few people that have been there and done it, and I still pinch myself. You know, sometimes some people say things about things that have happened in the past and things I've forgotten, and I think, oh my God, you know, that hit me like a punch in the face, you know, because I'm like, Jesus, I forgot that it even happened, and that was me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's still bizarre. I probably never get used to it, but I'm so grateful that it's happened to me, and I've got something that my kids and my family will always have there as well, and I hope something like that happens to them as well.
Definitely. Gentlemen, it's been an absolute treat to speak to you this afternoon. Thanks ever so much for that. Oh, before I let you go, obviously later on, Wales take on England in the Six Nations in Twickenham. Phil, do you have a prediction for for a score?
We're going to need a prescription after the game. I actually think Wales are going to do it. Yes, England are good, and they're a team that's developing. But I just think that Wales are going to bring a little edge to it, and hopefully we'll have a good go at them, and maybe score a couple of tries. That's what we need. We need to score points, tries against England. So come on, Wales.
Absolutely. Yeah, we didn't have the best of starts against Ireland. Lovely game against Scotland a couple of weeks ago. Do you fancy our chances?
Well, I hope they play more like they played against Scotland than they played against Ireland. But like a good Welshman, of course, I want Wales to win. I think it's going to be very close, though. But I think I'm with Phil on this. I think Wales will have the luck maybe this afternoon.
And Shane, you can from the horse's mouth. What's it like to beat England? I mean, it must be just. Is it better to beat England or to actually win the whole tournament?
Oh God, yeah, what a question. Look, I haven't beaten England that often, to be honest with you. I've only done it once in Twickenham, but yeah, there's probably no better feeling. Let's be honest. You know, we're the old rivals. You know, some of my best mates in the rugby life are actually English. It's a big ask. But, you know, always back the boys, and I wish them all the very best today.
Fantastic. Shane, Ieuan, Phil, it's been a treat to speak to you this afternoon. Thanks ever so much for that. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Cheers, boys. Thank you.
Hwyl fawr. That's the only bit of Welsh I know.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much.
Cheers, guys. Ta-ra.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I could listen to those guys all night. And if indeed you could listen to those lads all night, then you can go and see An Evening with Shane Williams. It looks belting. Literally touring all over the country. London Welsh Centre on March the 5th. April the 5th in Port Talbot. Then they stop off at Porthcawl and Bangor and Cardiff, Brecon, Newtown and Treorchy. And then in June, Swansea. And then closest to us, I think, the Arts Centre in Aberystwyth. And June the 15th, the Courtyard in Hereford. There you go, An Evening with Shane Williams. It looks belting, doesn't it?
From the heart of your community, your town, your station, your voice. Afternoons on Calon FM.